Hello, YouTube, and welcome to the Untitled Two Brothers podcast. And I'm Travis Dunn.
And I'm Steven Dunn. Today we're going to be talking about the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 issues with the battery. We're also going to be talking about the new PlayStation 4.5, or as it now has a name of the PlayStation 4 Pro. We're going to talk about some of the events that Apple talked about with the new phones and also the watches. And if we have time tonight, we're also going to talk about MetalJesusRocks prototype Nintendo 64 disk drive.
Alrighty. Samsung Galaxy Note 7. That's been a complete clusterfuck for Samsung.
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic because I actually have a Samsung Note 5, and when I was looking at some of the specs for the Note 7 when they released them, I thought about the idea of upgrading to the Note 7, but I wasn't really enthused about some of the spec upgrades over my Note 5. There wasn't a whole lot of options except for the idea of adding a new, the SD micro memory card, which mine doesn't have the option for. But the issues that they've been having with these batteries, and it is 100% recall on all phones that are out at this point in time.
Yeah, there's been at least 34 confirmed reports of batteries either catching fire or literally almost totally exploding. And I mean, literally, that phone hasn't been out, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think it's been out like 3 weeks, and it's gotten to the point now where, I mean, you've had kids that have gotten hurt from it. You have airlines that are saying either one, you can't have the phone on you, or two, you have to have it completely shut off just in case on an airline.
Yeah, the FFA has done pretty much everything short of banning the Note 7, and they've asked users obviously not to have them on, not to charge them while they're flying. I mean, this has become a serious issue, and then having obviously this recall being such a big thing as it is, but then turn around, you got the Apple, new iPhones coming out. That's pretty enticing for people to turn their old phones in and get a new iPhone. They want the new hotness.
And the thing is with the spec, I'm not saying the specs of the Note 7 were bad, and that was the thing that's really going to hurt Samsung, is the idea that, hey, they could entice people. If you were kind of getting tired of the Apple and the Apple way, you might have had another option to switch over to this new Samsung. Unfortunately now, people's not going to do that. And on top of that, the people that have Samsung Notes or Galaxies or whatever, like I do, like I told you earlier, I honestly believe I'm going to switch to an Apple phone. I mean, I have an iPad already. It's not like I'm not used to iOS or anything. So it's not going to be a hard transition. But it's really sad that Samsung is going to have to go through with this, being that they're the number one carrier on the Android side.
Yeah, and I'm rocking an S5 now. The two reasons I didn't go for an S6. One was cost, because they were obviously very, very much more expensive based on the way all these new cell phone plans are now.
Yeah.
But the other thing was I wanted to be able to add memory, and memory has been a big thing. But that's one of the reasons why I got out of an iPhone. I'll be honest, I loved my iPhone. I had a couple. I had a 3, I had a 4, and I had a 5. And I love my Apple phones, but having such limited storage without paying a ridiculous surcharge was just the reason I went Android. So yeah, that definitely makes you think twice about about a Samsung phone.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They say it's the Note 7, and hopefully they fix the issue and they don't have any issues with the other lines, but it's really, really tarnished their reputation for making quality products.
Yeah, and officially Samsung has not said what the problem actually is, but based on what we're seeing, based on what we're hearing, it's sounding like there's a problem with the chemical mix in the lithium polymer battery. And anybody that's been that knows or has seen RC cars, those batteries can, when they overheat or when the chemicals in them break down improperly during a recharge. That's why you always have to have a proper recharge device. those things they'll catch fire, and they're not thermite, but they're like thermite. They're difficult to put out.
Right.
Once they start.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the PlayStation 4 Pro, which is a very interesting concept. They just released it I do believe it was the same time Apple had their thing, and they talked about some of the specs and what they had. And honestly, I mean, we have a PlayStation 4 regular, and I will not be converting up to the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, there's nothing for me, at least with this particular, this was originally called the Neo, now officially called the PS4 Pro. There's nothing here that makes me want to buy it. It really offers, right now, it doesn't even offer what the Xbox S is currently offering. So it was an extreme disappointment all the way around as far as this update is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting part about it is you're talking a $400 price point launch, which is what the original PlayStation 4 was, which is now $300. So it's $100 more than the original PlayStation 4, which is also $100 more, or $50 if you count the 1 terabyte Xbox S. But the main issue that I have with this, and the reason because I was going to get an Xbox One S because I don't have an Xbox One, was the issue that it doesn't come with the 4K, Blu-ray DVD capabilities, the Ultra HD Blu-rays. Sony owns the rights to Blu-ray. So for their competitor to actually include that option in their system, but yet the actual owners and patent pending people not to put it in their system, that is a huge mistake on their part.
Yeah, and they're definitely getting dinged for not having the UHD Blu-ray. And for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, whenever the new 4K Blu-rays came out, it was basically kind of a new format. Requires a specific player or a specific reader to read those discs. Now, up until recently, there was only 2 or 3 players even out in the market. They're very expensive.
Very expensive, yeah.
$600-$700 in some cases. And with the new Xbox One S, they did include a UHD Blu-ray player. Now, I have actually bought some because they come bundled with both a regular Blu-ray and the 4K Blu-ray, obviously, knowing that I'll eventually buy a player when they become a little more affordable. For them not to embrace it, because this is the reason Blu-ray won the market to begin with over
HD DVD.
Yeah, HD DVD. Because technically, from a market standpoint, HD DVD was a far better product from not from a consumer necessarily standpoint, but from a market standpoint, because it was cheaper to produce. It didn't require a bunch of things that that Blu-ray ultimately requires to operate. Now, like I said, that was the big selling point for the PlayStation 3. It was the first to have a Blu-ray player. It was cheaper than any other Blu-ray player on the market, and the best. It was
and you
always
could play
up
games
to date.
on it, and that
and
was
you can
the
play
thing.
games.
And if you think about this, we're in the same boat with this. I mean, you have the expensive Ultra HD Blu-ray players, but you can buy an Xbox One S and get those capabilities and a game machine.
Not to mention your 4K Netflix, your 4K YouTube, and it'll still play all your other DVDs and Blu-rays. I mean, it really doesn't make sense, and I think they hurt themselves by not including the UHD. And I can't imagine that if it was a numbers thing, why they didn't put it in. There's no way.
Well, and like I said, the Xbox One S starts out the 500 gig at $300, and right. I mean they only go up to 400 for their 2 terabyte version, assuming you can find it. So if Microsoft is able to input that in their Xbox, even if it's charging a little much, and I think Microsoft they might have had a heads up that this was going to happen, and they knew to put that in there because they're trying to catch up, obviously, to Sony with the sales of the Xbox. Because obviously, PlayStation 4 is blowing Xbox and of course Wii U, but we don't count that out of the water.
Yeah, and based on the specs, they said they doubled the GPU power. They boosted up the CPU clock speeds, which was to help allow some 4K, obviously 4K upgrading as far as being able to stream video and stuff like that, and to do for the PlayStation VR. They did confirm that you have to buy a PS4 Pro to do the VR. They were going to do some trickery to make the irregular PlayStation 4 work, but they ultimately said that they couldn't guarantee the quality for VR without making huge sacrifices. So,
which in turn is another disappointment because they were telling everybody this whole time it's going to be compatible against both platforms, that you're not going to have a problem with it. And I know they're also talking about the idea that charging developers a fee to basically do trickery to try to get 4K output of their games. But developers are saying, no, everything's going to run at 30 frames per second. We're not trying to do anything like that. So it's going to be really interesting on how much backlash they get from the third-party developers on their games from here on out.
Well, and that also falls under, even though it's not in the topics, but here in this last week, we got notification from Fallout, or Bethesda, on the Fallout series that we were not going to see mods on the PlayStation, and they said point blank it was PlayStation. They were working hard to put that together, and I'm assuming probably what it came down to is PlayStation said, we want some money.
Yeah,
and they were like, we can't charge for something we give them free to everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And that's your first that I've heard of third-party supporter that's starting to pull back on their products.
Yeah, because that was something they were touting, and they've already made it available for Xbox. Obviously, on PC, it's pretty much been almost from beginning. Mm-hmm. But for them to do that was definitely a sign that PlayStation was butting heads with them as far as allowing extra features like that. There was some talk originally. There was some talk of on that UHD Blu-ray that maybe there was going to be a firmware update to get the ability, and then they came back and said no, it does not have the hardware ability to play those UHD Blu-rays, and I agree. I think this was a huge slip up on their part. The only real reason is if you haven't bought a PlayStation 4, mm-hmm. You might as well buy this just because. Yeah. Other than that, if you've got a PlayStation 4, there's no reason
to upgrade.
To upgrade, unless you just want to blow money. You're better off buying the Xbox One S or waiting for Scorpio to come out. All right. So, anything else on the PlayStation besides the fact that...
Besides the disappointment, no. I wasn't... It's not that it was something I was going to go out and buy, because like I said, I already have a PlayStation 4. I don't really need one. But I was interested in what they were going to offer to the market, being the fact that we got Scorpio coming out next year, and maybe some people don't want to wait, but we've already seen from the developers in the community that they're already having problems with support for the system because of what Sony wants these companies to do. So whether I get an Xbox One S or I wait for the Scorpio to see what the price point's going to be on that, I don't know. But I definitely say, like you said, if you already have a PlayStation 4, I would recommend not upgrading, just keeping what you have, because you're just wasting the $400 you spent if you bought it brand new when it came out.
Yeah, there's nothing that entices me there to go out and buy a new console. And I don't have the PlayStation 4, so this was something I was sort of looking at. That's possibly something coming up, because there are some games on PlayStation that I haven't got to play yet, but I'm going to wait. There's nothing here that entices me to go out and buy.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
All right. So we're gonna move over to the Apple event. This was interesting.
I watched down a chopped down version,
and I don't know if I
say
interesting in a good
hour
way.
event, and it was really interesting. Some of the stuff I seen with the new iPhones. I told my wife, she actually has an iPhone 6S, and I told her, I said, you can get, because right now she's got the baseline, the 16 gig, and I said they're starting out at 32. And I asked her, I said, well, how much storage have you used on yours? And she's like, well, not that much. And I'm like, oh, well, here I was thinking it might have been an upgrade for her, but apparently she's not using her phone all that much for taking videos and pictures and whatnot. But the interesting thing is, they talk about the battery life on it. It's going to be roughly another hour on top of what the 6S is and whatnot. The interesting thing on top of that is the headphone jack being removed.
Yeah, and not only did they remove it, but because they knew they were going to get shit for it. They knew that was coming. They knew the moment they said no headphone jack, everybody, because this is kind of what they did when they started changing the plugins. Everybody was figuring, well, if they do away with the headphone jack, they'll make an adapter, but they're going to charge you $40 for it. Mm-hmm. Well, at least they're including an adapter to go from a Lightning to a standard set of earbuds.
Yeah.
So you're not completely out. But the problem is you can't charge the phone and use the earbuds at the same time.
And this is true. But most people don't. Most people, if you're listening to music or whatever, you're out on the go, you're not really going to charge it. And the option that not only give you the adapter, but then they're also giving you the Lightning headphones, the wired headphones with it too. And it was a really nice option that they did. So I give them props for that, because like you said, they knew they were going to get backlash for changing that. But they did say, okay, we know you guys are not going to be happy with this, but we've already incorporated an option and we're not going to charge you for it.
Yeah, I think the backlash would have been severe if they didn't include an adapter, because a lot of people pay good money for earphones. I've seen a couple $100 earbuds, on the market, especially like you get into the Shure ones, which are really nice. I've heard them before, and they are really nice, but they're just way too expensive. I think they're $200 or $300 for a set. But in the same boat, it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, no, now a lot of manufacturers are going to try to want to upscale and offer their headphones with Lightning Direct Connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the same boat, it's going to be, they're going to upcharge ridiculous prices.
And rightfully so, because it becomes a proprietary plug-in, so they're going to charge that premium price. It's not just something you can go plug in anywhere.
But I am kind of curious, even though this is, this whole, Lightning headphone thing is new, but will those work with older devices? So let's say we do get a whole line of Lightning headphones or whatever, and say I want to use my iPhone 5 and play music on it. Mm-hmm. Are the older phones compatible to use that? Or
right.
Is that,
right.
Like, what I mean?
what you're saying is, could you take your, say, like my wife, she had a 5C, or even a 4G, or no, 4GS had Lightning too, didn't it? Or is it just the 5s? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I know what you're saying. You're saying, can you take that adapter, plug it into, say, an iPhone 5 or 5C, 5S, whatever, and be able to plug your headphones into it? Or is that just something that's proprietary to the new iPhone 7s? And that's a good question, because they never even mentioned that in their event.
Yeah, my other thing is too, it's like, one of the downfalls of using a headphone jack is the quality of the audio that can come through. Bluetooth is always horrible.
Yeah.
Using Bluetooth, you never get full fidelity, and for people who are audiophiles, and I'm kind of in between. Don't get me wrong, I love good audio, but there's always that trade-off of cost versus is it really worth it?
Right.
And I'm really wondering if with the Lightning you're going to get maybe a higher digital fidelity over what would essentially be an analog connection.
And listening to them when they were talking about the Lightning connector, I mean, they said when they came out with the Lightning connector back in the iPhone 5 time, they were planning on using that for basically to replace the audio. So they already had plans. I'm just hoping that since they've been doing it since then, that it's been finessed into the point where you're going to get a better quality audio out of that.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the audio, and obviously we're talking about, you know, the Lightning connector, but and like you said, there is a set of regular, you know, Lightning connecting earbuds, but they're going to offer as an optional device that is wireless, known as now as an AirPod, which, you know, real original there in the naming, but I'll be honest, they look like first gen earbuds.
They do, but I'm kind of like we were talking about the technology and everything with that their special chip they got, and it escapes me what the name of it is. But I mean, it's even being used by Beats Audio for their wireless headsets. And if you got a company like Beats that's using that same technology in their wireless headphones, that probably says something about the quality.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm curious what the quality is going to be over a standard wired set. You know, going back into the whole fidelity thing,
right?
Because if they are Bluetooth, like I said, the biggest downfall with Bluetooth is you just don't get the fidelity. You don't get the highs and the lows, and it's even in my car. That's one of the things I hate about running Bluetooth. It's fine when you're doing the hands-free calling because you don't need to be high fidelity, but when I'm trying to listen to something even off of Spotify, you know, you're getting something in that's compressed, and then it's basically compressed even more because Bluetooth just doesn't have the bandwidth to properly bring out the audio quality. And to me, I'm wondering, you know, at $150, and that's the thing to remember, you know, they're $159. Sorry, they're basically $160. They're going to be coming out sometime later. They haven't announced a date. But the weird thing, and this is the thing everybody says, because the case is the charging unit, and everybody's like, I'm so going to lose those. Not only lose the earbuds, but they're going to lose the case. And at that point, it's like, you know, how expensive is it going to be to replace the case to charge them with?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I actually like the option. I mean, because even like my wife's phones, her earbuds, they stay in the case, but she doesn't use them. But for an avid user, I can see it very easy to either get lost or get damaged. I mean, that's why they make aftermarket phone chargers, you know, because in case you lose or so it's stolen or you break it, you know, you can go buy a cheap aftermarket. So is there going to be an aftermarket, you know, for these earbuds, especially the chargers? That'll be interesting too, if there's a patent on that to where third parties can't make chargers for it.
Yeah, because I mean, the right now the case basically looks almost like, kind of like, to me, like a cheap headphone case. I mean, and they just fit straight down in. I mean, I'd almost describe them like a case you would get with hearing aids. That would be my best description of what the case looks like. Yeah, I don't know. That I'm interested to hear them. I want to hear what they sound like, because that's ultimately going to be the big determination. Are they worth this premium price? Because there are other Bluetooth, there are other hands-free earbuds or whatnot, and I just don't know if the premium price is going to be worth it.
Yeah, I can't really say whether they're going to be, but it's just something, you know, when they come out and they get reviewed and stuff, you know, we'll keep an eye on, you know, what people think, or if me or you are able to get our hands on them and test them out and let everybody know what we think of them. I mean, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Now, one of the biggest things that everybody's been touting is apparently because of the removal of the headphone jack and the way that they set everything up was they basically they've also done away with the standard home button. It's now a haptic feedback. It's just touch.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a click like we're used to with a lot of other phones. And with all those added features, one of the big things for them was it's going to be, or it's supposed to be IP67 waterproof, which is not the highest standard of waterproofing,
right.
but it's you're supposed to be able to drop it in water and not destroy the phone. In fact, they even touted talking about how the speakers are the new speakers are designed so that when you say if it did get dunked in water and you bring it out, the speakers will actually push the water out of the speaker holes so that it doesn't ingress into the phone itself.
And that's an interesting concept, because to me, anytime you take a device like that and you basically kind of, I'm going to say, bulletproof it, even if it's not, it's waterproof. What's the sound quality on those new, stereo speakers going to be like? Because typically when you do something like that, you inhibit the sound on it.
Yeah, that was my thought too about that. The only thing I can think of is that whatever that material is that they've used to sort of waterproof it has to be what they're using as the cone of the speaker. It's the only way I can think that they just made sure that it was waterproof and that there was no way for water. I need to quit doing that to hitting the microphone. No way of ingressing the water into the phone and the device itself. So,
and that would make sense. I mean, if they have a special polymer speaker, like you said, cone or whatever, that water can't penetrate through, or rubber based, and then obviously you silicone around the speaker mount itself so it doesn't seep into the phone. It'll be interesting. I can't wait to see it tested.
Now everybody's. I'm both happy about this, and I'm still pissed off about this. They finally increased the storage on an iOS device. It's one of my big pet peeves about, and it's one of the couple of reasons why I went Android.
Mm-hmm.
And they did double the amount of memory. So it starts out at 32, goes to 128, goes to 256. But again, you're paying super premium prices for, I mean, hell, you can get a 32 gig card for less than $15.
Oh yeah,
for
easily.
A high quality one. I've seen 128 for under $25. 256 is still really expensive, so I kind of understand a premium price there. But up to 128 gigs, the premium price is not worth it. I don't understand why they think they can charge that much money for that kind of storage. When, like I said, you can get that same storage, on a SD card basically.
Mm-hmm. And
frankly, to me, 32 gigs is a good starting point if you were doing like a budget phone.
Right.
But anymore, it's not enough. It is simply not enough.
No, and it's not, because my Note 5, it's a 32 gig model, which was baseline when I got it, and 7 gigs left, because and most of it's pictures. I do have a few videos from when I've done some Pokemoning and stuff like that, or I do have some 4K video of my daughter's graduation, obviously, that I'm not taking off the phone yet because I'm scared to and I don't want to lose it. But with that, I'm almost out already, and I don't really have a whole lot. I don't have a bunch of apps on my phone or anything like that. So you're right, 32 gigs should be a base standard starter style phone. 64 is more of your normal person, and then your 128, 256 be enthusiasts, but they should not be charging the premium that they are.
Yeah, like I said, that should be starting at 64. Now my phone it has 16 gigs starting on the phone, mm-hmm. and then I've got a 64 gig card in it, and right now I've got 13.7 gigs, 7.3 gigs on the internal memory, which I actually need to go through. And then I've used 40 out of basically 60 gigs available on my SD card, but I do have a lot of photos and videos and stuff that I need to download, and I just haven't done it in a while.
Right.
But that's the thing. I mean, it's like This is not enough storage. It's still really low in my book, and to pay that you're already, like I said, you're already paying premium for the base phone. To turn around and then go, we're going to charge you an extra $100 for each step, and it's like it like I said, just doesn't compute in my book.
But if you want the extra memory, you can always go with the next part where they're having 2 new colors, black and jet black. And the jet black is like a glossy finish, which starts out at 128 gigs, and there's a 256 gig option as well.
Yeah, you can't get it in the 32 gig. And hilariously funny, the jet black, apparently there is a notice on the jet black that it will scratch easily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought that when I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. It's like, and I understand why they did it, because obviously they needed to protect themselves, because the first thing everybody's going to do is it's going to be Scratchgate.
Right, right.
But in the same boat, it's like, why if they couldn't create a relatively scratch-free finish, they shouldn't have bothered it.
Right. They should have just came out with the regular black, matte finished or whatever, to where it's basically scratch resistant.
And I don't completely understand anymore. Even in the beginning, it's like, I don't understand the whole colored phone concept, because 99% of the time, you're gonna put a case on it, even if it's even if it's just a scratch case, one of those silicone covers. You're gonna put something on it to try to protect it.
Yep.
And
so it doesn't. What does it matter what color you get?
Yeah, and then to pay premium for a certain color, just kind of ridiculous.
Like Steph's phone, it's the 6S with the rose gold, and she's got the pink OtterBox case, so that looks kind of cool. In the hole for the Apple, you can see the pink in it. It doesn't look kind of really off, but exactly, you're going to throw a case on it, and you're not ever going to really see the colors anyway.
All right, well, let's go through a little bit of the specs. iPhone 7, pretty much, you got the upgraded A whatever chip.
A10.
It's got pretty much the exact same screen from last year. They're supposed to be a little bit, I guess, brighter than the previous model, but other than that, they're the same resolution, the same size. The shape of both of these phones are essentially the same as last generation, so not much to talk about there. Besides the upgraded memory and the changes as far as
the HDR or something they added, the high dynamic resolution with the. I think they actually have did the old phones have the Retina display, or is this something new they're bringing to the iPhone 7s?
No. They've had Retina for quite a while now. So like the last 3 generations, I think were all Retina screens. The iPhone 7 Plus did get a dual 12 megapixel camera, which was another, like, I felt like this was something they added to shut people up, not because they truly wanted to sit down and develop it. Because they're not used in conjunction with each other. They're used completely opposite of each other, which makes no sense whatsoever. Because one is a wide angle, and one is a optical zoom lens.
Right, telescopic one, yeah.
Right. Not a whole lot. It's only 2x.
Right.
But it's one of those things. I would have rather had a dual camera that was designed to help create more pixels in an image,
or depth even,
or depth. Which supposedly there's some synthetic digital stuff depth-wise that you're supposed to be able to do, but it's supposed to be a digital thing. Only available on the 7 Plus, by the way.
Right.
But as far as it's like, and that's the thing with the last couple generations of this, the camera already sticks out as it is, which I hate when they do that. But even my S6, the camera sticks out a bit. I don't know why. It's like, just make the phone the same size to make it even, because this is what causes these to get broken.
Exactly. And it doesn't take much when they stick out.
No, it doesn't take much. And even a regular screen, it seems like every year we hear Gorilla Glass 32. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it's always supposed to be nearly unbreakable, and usually within 2 weeks somebody goes, "I cracked the screen on my iPhone." I mean,
I don't know. You know, probably the least exciting part of that event was the announcement of the Apple Watch 2.
and you and I sort of talked about this a little bit before
Mhm.
before we did the podcast, and we both are kind of like, a watch is kind of a dumb feature anymore. There's not enough in it to make it worth, especially the cost.
Yes, it's the cost of it. If it was $150 watch, okay, $400. I had a friend that just bought one at work, and she showed it to me, and we talked about it before. And she showed it to me because she ordered it. She didn't tell me she was going to order it, but she wanted to look at them. And she's like, "Yeah, I got the watch." And I looked at it and I was like, that is the biggest waste of money I had ever seen in my life.
You're paying almost as much as a phone.
Yeah.
For a watch that you have to
You have to have the
phone.
phone. Yeah, that's the thing. You have to have the phone to use that for those phone capabilities.
And yeah, I have yet to figure out the real appeal of them, and I don't have one of. But I'm not going to spend that kind of money. I'm going to buy I'll buy a newer, greater phone, or spend some money on my computer or another console before I'll go out and buy an Apple Watch. I don't get it.
Yeah, you can go buy a brand new PlayStation 4 Pro when it comes out, and it's better. I think it's a better option than this watch.
And that's saying a lot. How
we just trashed it, but I would much rather have that than this stupid watch. And I mean, no, if people's into that, it's not everybody's gimmick. I mean, some people they want it, they'll use it, they have a purpose for it. But for the common person, I don't see going and spending $400 for this piece of equipment that to me is just not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, outside there was no changes. It is now supposedly waterproof to 50 meters, which was a big bonus for a lot of people. Because I can't remember, but wasn't it like 15 or 20 meters or something was the last time? Maybe not even that.
Yeah, it wasn't much at all.
They did say that the display was brighter. They did add GPS. They did add a dual-core processor. There is going to be an option to play Pokemon Go, which I know is probably the only reason you'd have any interest in one whatsoever.
And I think that's the only reason they're working with Niantic to do that, because that is the only thing. If this thing is a success, which I absolutely hope it's not, because I still think it's a piece of junk, is going to be because of Pokemon Go. That's the only way I think it's going to be a success. I'm not going to say it's not going to sell to people that's not going to use it for that, but that's the only way it's going to sell a lot.
You know, and I think this comes about as part of, all this what has become known as the sport watch. Mm-hmm. It counts your steps, it counts how far you've traveled, it checks your heart rate.
Woo.
Those are just, those are fitness trackers. That's what they do best.
My phone has it built in.
So does mine, and I get my steps all the time, which I usually keep track. Yeah, like I said, I'll be honest, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm absolutely done with that.
I just did stupid. Let's just move on.
Yeah, move on to something very interesting that I'm happy about.
Yeah, and we've had a slew of unique gaming items that have come out in the middle, weirdly come out of the middle of nowhere.
Right. I mean, just how long was it ago? Like 5 months ago, and we talked about on our previous podcast about the, not new, but newly discovered Nintendo PlayStation, which was amazing.
Which was amazing, and everybody said it didn't exist, or it was all destroyed, and then for it to just come out of the woodwork was great. And now Rock Metal Jesus managed to get his hands on a one-off USA version of what was known as the 64 disk driver, 64DD.
Right, which was available in Japan, very limited quantities. It was released in Japan, but in limited quantities. But just like the Nintendo PlayStation, there was absolutely no idea that one ever even existed physically.
Yeah, no, the thing was, I think when I saw the video, they were saying it was on the market for like 6 months, maybe, and it got yanked because the sales were so bad. And the whole point was to basically add more, I guess, a bigger storage capacity for what was ultimately supposed to add depth to the games.
Right. It was just an add-on enhancement.
But ultimately it was a huge failure, and very little was developed for it. Now, interesting enough, the version that Rock Metal Jesus, like I said, had it was marked and everything was in English, and he had a blue disc, which apparently was really weird because apparently the blue disc was only readable in a blue disc version of the 64DD.
Right,
apparently
the developers kits.
Right, it was basically a developer's kit, and so he wasn't able to load the disc on his. Now he managed to get partnered up with somebody who studied the 64DD and has a lot of the stuff from Japan. He actually flew to Portland from the East Coast.
Yeah, from Detroit. That's where the guy was from. Metal Jesus paid for him to come out there with his developer's kit and try to help him discover what was on this disc.
Yeah, because like I said, there wasn't a lot developed even on the Japanese market, and as far as anybody knows, there was nothing ever developed. Obviously for this unicorn, and ultimately found out it was just a developer test disc. It wasn't unfortunately some magical demo. There was also some rumors that everybody thought maybe it was the Lost Conkers game that was rumored to have been developed on the 64DD.
Right, and I think they also was looking for like a Zelda game.
There was a Zelda game that supposedly was started, developed, and never finished. That people are looking for, but they managed to pull the data off the disc. In fact, apparently they found somebody else who had like 3 more of those blue discs. So they're literally like, if anybody's got blue disc or white gray disc or whatever they are, they're literally like, let us know. We'll pull the data off of them and make it available to everybody.
Right, and preserve it and put it out online, which is nice because they ripped the BIOS from his drive, which now means they have a US BIOS.
Right, they have a US BIOS, which means somebody can actually develop a game.
And that's what I'm waiting for, because that's going to happen. Just like when, not too long ago, within the last year, they cracked the Saturn BIOS finally to where people can start developing for that. You're going to see people like this guy, and I wish I could remember his name, from Detroit, that was hanging out with Metal Jesus and helped him with this. You're going to see guys like that's going to get teams together, and they're going to start developing games for these.
Well, and we've had a resurgence of the retro gaming, and not in the collector market. It's actually been in the developing market, because you got people who are making NES games, Super NES games, Genesis games. Recently, there's some people who are developing TurboGrafx 16, and I think I sent you a link to one that John Riggs got his fingers on. So there's a lot of people who are interested in developing brand new games for old consoles.
And the funny thing is, this year, not 5 days ago, do you remember whose birthday it was? 5 years ago, it had been 17 years, but 5 days ago, 17 years from that date, we had a console release with the most famous date of all time, 9/9/99. There's a Sega Dreamcast, and they have been making games for that. They still make brand new games for that system.
Yeah, it was a little bit easier to play homebrew games on the Dreamcast. There's been a lot of development in that market. So that, yeah, you're right. That definitely made has made a difference. And like I said, there's been a huge resurgence. I mean, like I said, we've seen everything from Atari to, like I said, TurboGrafx 16, which
is rare in our parts.
Yeah, I mean, you've collected a few items of it, and but they're rare and they're hard to get a hold of, and but to have people willing to put brand new, like I said, brand new games out for those systems is going to be a great thing for the market. It's going to be a great thing for collectors and allow you to enjoy those consoles again, and I think we'll make them even more valuable in the long term.
I do too. I think it's a great thing, and hopefully it really sparks the interest in developers and people and indies to start making these games for these older systems.
All right, I think that's where we're going to end the podcast today. Obviously, if we happen to hear any more on the USA 64DD, we'll definitely talk about that in a future podcast if anything more comes about. Certainly, in the last, you and I have talked about, we've had some serious issues. We're working on trying to get all our processes down so that we can make this the best podcast ever. Like I said, we ultimately want to try to do this as a live stream, but it's going to be quite a while, I think, before we're going to be ready to do that.
Yeah, we're still working on all these other bugs, but hopefully if we get that fixed out, then we'll be able to move on to where we can actually do live stream with subscribers or anybody who wants to watch, and do Q&A with people and stuff like that. I think that's probably ultimate goal of where we want to get eventually.
Yeah, it's definitely where we want to get to. I just went out and spent $400 upgrading my machine, so I've got some new hardware. I've got hopefully some plans to do some more hardware in the near future, and we're definitely looking forward to producing more content and doing more. Maybe eventually adding more shows. But for now, we're going to stick to the 2-week schedule for now. But him and I are discussing about the possibility of moving this to a weekly show. So I want to thank everybody who's been watching. Please continue to watch. Please share. Let us know what you think. Let us know any topics you want us to talk about in the next show. We do appreciate any feedback anybody can give us, and we look forward to having that conversation with you. So, anything else you want to add before we head out?
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, and those that watch us. We really appreciate your guys' support and whatever. And like you said, if you guys have any comments, your tips, pointers of stuff that we can do to help make us better and help create better content for you guys, then please let us know.
Yep, and we'll leave a link in the description as always to our social medias. And I'll also leave a link to the 2 videos for the MetalJesusRocks disk drive videos that he's posted. So I want to thank everybody for viewing, and we will catch you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Later.